Seeing Leda's dance concerned me, and I want to explore why. I want to say right off the bat, it isn't because this is a bad scene, quite the opposite. I'm thoroughly enchanted. The lighting of the theater, the drapes on the stage, the flow of her skirts, the grace of her steps, I'm right there with the audience, immersed, charmed, under the performer's spell. And it isn't just the beauty of the dancer, it's the hypnotic strumming of the guitar, the emphasis the animators put on the finger movements. The music combines with the atmosphere, a world of crimson and violet, dim light, echoing music. I can almost imagine the aroma of cedar and citrus incense. For some reason, I'm even reminded of Anatolia with her dice. Leda with her stage and all the senses one experiences there seems to be putting on a similar kind of show. It's like I'm witnessing a magician at work. She knows how to captivate attention and steer thought. It almost feels like a kind of mind reading or fortune telling. She is that in control. But like Anatolia predicts doom, there's a shadow in my mind from this show, when I feel the performer is trying to banish from our thoughts. There's something she doesn't want us seeing as she steers our focus. An actor has to shut out their life to prioritize character, the show must go on, but we forget that their work is to do the same for the audience. We leave our pasts at the door. Here, we are enveloped by music, lights, and beauty. I can enjoy the show, but I still wonder what's concealed behind the scenes. What do the smiles suppress? Maybe looking at other dances in the series will give me some insight. For containing stories about war, the Fire Emblem games have a surprising amount of dancing in them, stretching back even to the series' early days. My first recollection upon seeing this new scene was Azura in Fire Emblem Fates, a highly anticipated game that didn't quite live up to the hype. Sure, the mechanics could be engaging, but the writing was, to put it gently, lacking. And look, I don't want to dunk on someone else's source of joy. If you love the game despite the flaws, or if you disagree with what I would categorize as a flaw, that is totally fine. Don't let me tell you where you can and can't find a dosage of happiness in this world. That is your prerogative. Music and dance played a large thematic role in Fates, and we're seeing the same thing develop in Fortune's Weave. Two titles with interesting parallels, Fate and Fortune, as if it is a dance between Ananke and Taiki. Music seems imbued with magic in a Tolkien-esque way, as though something about song or the vibrations causes shifts on a fundamental level of these worlds, something resonating with creation itself. It's an interesting idea, but I was left disappointed by what could have been a powerful scene in Fates. Azura's water magic is pretty and the music is catchy, giving us another Fates Fortune's Weave parallel here. You have the bolero and paso doble renditions of Fate's theme, and this paso/flamenco inspiration, even with taconeo footwork clearly informing Leda's style. The former ballroom dancer in me is quite thrilled with these presentations. Yet in Fates, the pragmatics give me pause. Where's the music coming from? How can the audience see with all the water veiling the dancer? From our elevated approximate angle, it can look aesthetically pleasing, but this isn't the angle the audience has. And even up close, it can be hard to tell what exactly is happening on stage. Why perform if the dance will just be veiled? Add to this the interruptions in the scene, with disturbing gurgling noises from an odious, irredeemable character, and we are ripped from the show. If there is any immersion left, it's in this bile that is the senseless war encapsulating Azura's performance. There was no purpose to the dance beyond the spell it would cast on Gera, a public political assault bound to attract attention and incite violence in a place surrounded by innocents and opponents alike, all things you'd think Corrin would want to avoid. Behind the obvious care and passion that went into the creation of this scene, there's a sloppiness that mars the impact of the moment, killing its legacy. This doesn't last the way it could have, because the show was never meant to be important. It was a set piece meant to attract attention. It was a plot point for one specific purpose, doomed from the start. It spawned out of nowhere and it disappeared into nothing. The characters don't remember the moment any more than we as the audience are expected to. The tragedy that followed this dance wasn't the battle, but the total lack of impact it made. Like the game itself, the dance seems to me all build-up, no delivery, hopes and expectations amounting to a sigh. So let's move on then to the next game in the series, Fire Emblem Echoes, a passion project of a team whose nostalgia for an older game turned into one of the most beautiful creations I've ever enjoyed. Echoes to me is a kind of antithesis to Fates. It had no anticipation, no advertising, it was dropped out of nowhere, unheralded and unexpected, and yet, despite lackluster mechanics, it holds a fond space in my memories. The artwork was incredible, the dungeon crawling adds a new and intriguing mechanic, the music was moving. Okay, that is one thing that Echoes and Fates have in common. But more than anything else, the characters felt real and relatable. Yes, it's a game. This whole thing is fiction and it takes place in a fantasy world with dragons and revenants and magic. I get it. But at its heart, it is a story made by people about people. There's love, hope, loss, irreconcilable conflicts. I think there's a Bible verse that says, "Thou shalt not let Grey live and Tobin die," something like that. It is a sin, I know that much. One of the main antagonists in the game is Berkut, a prince as adept as he is arrogant. He acts as an excellent foil to the protagonist Alm. Two boys about the same age, each separated from their fathers at a young age, but Berkut was raised to be a noble, while Alm was raised to keep his secret nobility as distant from his mind as possible, just a shadow of a thought. Berkut comes to see the Emperor as a father figure, and Alm learns that Rudolf is his actual father, leading to each losing a father figure with the defeat of the Emperor. Yet, Alm is the one who inherits the throne, for which he had no ambition, while Berkut simultaneously loses any chance at obtaining it despite a life of expecting just such an inheritance. Pride and potential ripped from him, he determines no cost will be too high if it means regaining his lost dignity, even when the cost entails the life of the woman he loved. This sacrifice is striking in a way no sacrifice in Fates ever was. Sorry Lilith, your death meant nothing to me. One of my favorite parts of consuming stories is trying to figure out why some things work for me and other things fall flat. I think in this case it can be explained by the build-up. For Berkut, we are given a story to work with. When we first meet Berkut, he is presented as a villain, but in a way I have never seen a villain portrayed before. He was dancing. A pompous noble invested in war and eager to achieve glory through domination on the battlefield, a man who takes pleasure in squashing rebellious farmers, who puts people in their place and was born and raised for a throne. You don't think of a man like that as dancing and romantic. And yet that is how you meet him. And regality saturates the scene. You're presented with a golden chamber, a polished floor under a rose window, curtains and carpeted stairs. And alone in this palace is a couple, the man in obsidian black, the woman in an azure gown. To operatic chants that form a Viennese waltz, the man leads the lady before they separate under a turning, dizzying pattern, only to rejoin and stare lovingly into each other's eyes. This dance, by the way, parallels the character's story. Berkut leads the woman he sacrifices on the altar of power, followed by their separation and eventual reunion, adding wonder to an already striking scene. I'm reminded of one of my favorite songs from the first Fire Emblem game released in America. It's the Villain's song, playing when you're engaged in an epic fight to the death with a powerful opponent. And the song is called Softly with Grace. Not the name you would expect from a fight song, any more than you would expect to see a warlord dancing. But what a name for a duel. Power isn't haphazardly wielding a gargantuan sword or swinging a massive axe with reckless abandon or engaging in forbidden magic. It's elegance in the face of death. You fight, rapier in the dominant hand, opposite shoulder turned from your foe, and softly, with grace, you deal the fatal blow. We are introduced to a villain who has all the poise, posture, elegance, and confidence that comes with dance. A remarkably effective introduction for a terrifying, captivating, charismatic foe. There's another dialogue that shows when Berkut and Rinea met, an incident which also occurs at a ball. He invites her to dance without regard to his exalted status compared to her lowly position among nobles. When she concerns herself with what they would think, he says they can dance away from prying eyes, like they are when we first see the characters. Clearly, dancing is an important part of their relationship, a bond the two share, and showing two nobles, people we commoners might not be able to empathize with so readily, as wanting to kick off their shoes, forget decorum, and throw caution into the wind just to have a night to themselves, a night to dance. Now that That's relatable. But together with the beauty and the calm and the sweet memories comes a melancholy. We know this moment cannot last. Berkut's sacrifice of one love for another, power and the pride that comes with it, was tragic, but it was especially tragic because it was foreshadowed from our first contact with Berkut, if not by the symbolism in their dance, then by the ominous skepticism we as an audience bring to the scene. It's too pretty, too perfect, and he is unfortunately positioned in opposition to our side. Their happiness, we know, is temporary. From the beginning, his story was leading to this tragic moment. The dance heralded the tragedy. Fire Emblem Three Houses has the White Heron Cup, a ball with a title that seems reminiscent of the game's Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. 2 installments without dancing, but which still retain this idea of magical power imbued in music, themes that seem to pervade the whole series. This ball in Three Houses is such a poignant moment, one that seems to occupy a space between those of Fates and Echoes. Like Fates, the dance wasn't built up to, nor did it have any lasting effects. It just happened once. But like Echoes, it still stuck with me, which has had me wondering why. Why did Three Houses have such a lasting impact on me? And why does this scene stand prominent in my mind? It doesn't seem to bother me that the dance has no lingering effects for the characters involved, though I wish it did receive a little more emphasis, as much as I like when Claude cheekily comes up to ask you to dance, without regard to the gender you selected, as if Claude could be bothered by such a thing. I think it would have been interesting if you had to pick who to dance with. The developers said they were originally planning to make Edelgard's route much harder to access, with hidden requirements that would require careful planning and playing in order to accomplish. What if choosing to dance with Edelgard had been one such requirement, a night when she could forget the shadows in her thoughts and focus on the moment, for just a moment? This certainly seems to be something on Edelgard's mind, and even if I can't definitively point to the dance as a moment that made Edelgard fond for Garrick Ma, I can confidently submit it as among her experiences which made her planned treachery so distressing for her. The song Edge of Dawn, set to the main theme of the game, is sung from the perspective of Edelgard. Here you see her express so many feelings she withholds during the game, feelings she refuses to let herself express. You get hints of these if you do not side with her in the game. She talks about how she had hoped against hope that you would stand by her side. Perhaps if she let herself voice these feelings, she would have found she could not go through with the plan that would certainly result in the death of so many she had come to regard as friends. With that in mind, look at these lines from the song. I'll soar away into the dawn, oh I wish I could stay. Here in cherished halls and peaceful days, I fear the edge of dawn, knowing time betrays. I wish I could stay, she says. For someone portrayed as soulless and cold, there's real sentiment there. And when she sees the sun rise, knowing what's in store tomorrow, she fears what's coming. This shows a new side of the character that we aren't allowed to see throughout the game. Think of Edelgard wandering the cathedral, struck by its beauty and knowing that she would bring ruin to it with these lines. Faint lights pass through colored glass in this beloved place. Silver shines, the world dines, a smile on each face. As joy surrounds, comfort abounds, and I can feel I'm breaking free for just this moment lost in time. I am finally me. Chills. There's power in music indeed, and this song really shows just how much the war she started was tearing her up inside, how much she was keeping concealed behind a mask. It puts into perspective what it must have been like entering the academy, planning its destruction from the beginning, and bearing that in mind with every positive interaction along the way. Each friend a length of rope being tied around her neck, and to have met Byleth and instantly been charmed, drawn in by some unseen and incomprehensible thread like Berkut to Rinea. But to know that kind of happiness was not for her, not in this life. It must have been emotionally harrowing. Look at the temporality imbued in her plea toward Byleth in the song and how she's preparing her mind for the ephemerality of it all. She says, Cross my heart, making vows I know will be betrayed. A sad girl's pleas live only for a breath, and then they fade. My dearest wish is that you'll know these tender thoughts that only seem to grow. They are as snow, melting away, yet seeking your warmth, if only for a day. I think the dance scene in Three Houses has stayed with me because it embodies the hopeless longing that lives in this song. This moment is one of those peaceful days in cherished halls that made those days sublime for her. So while everyone is smiling, regal and composed, and hoping for romance on that simple, quiet night, we, the audience, have a different experience from the characters because we know tragedy lurks inevitably around the corner. That Edelgard comments on the mask she's worn in the song, while also saying, "I'm finally me," it makes me feel the smile of hers we see isn't false. She isn't wearing a facade. Not here. This is a moment when she really is sincerely happy. She's letting herself experience the joy of a dance, if for just one night. Maybe that's one reason why these games have stuck with me for so long. They give us the burden of being God. I know there's this whole genre of Your Choice Matters games out there, and I have mixed feelings about them. Certainly which dialogue box you pick in little conversations doesn't have a big impact on anything. I mean, half the time you don't even have a choice. But there are bigger choices you do make, like which route will you play? It's fun on a first playthrough, but it becomes increasingly complex upon repeat plays when you know the characters and you know what fate awaits them. There are some choices here that will forever banish certain outcomes. When you choose sides, you are simultaneously condemning certain people to death. Even if you tried to recruit every student, you cannot save everyone. The addition of the game Three Hopes further complicates this choice. I know it isn't exactly the case, but I like to imagine Shez as one of the no-name NPCs from the very first chapter of Three Houses, just one of the countless bodies that stood in your way. You think so much about your friends and allies in the game, as well as the main antagonists, but all of these other guys, they're just filler characters. Three Hopes struck me as interesting right away because it took one of the countless no-name mercenaries who could have been, who should have been, just one of the corpses left in the wake of your missions, and then the game gives a whole story to that character. It's such a cool premise, and one that effectively turns the previous game's protagonist into a daunting antagonist. But suddenly you as the player have another choice to make. If you choose to save this nobody merc and give them a face, a name, and a story, you introduce them to a world of people and a rich, fulfilling life that he or she will find so gratifying. And in many strange and unnerving ways, life seems better for some characters if Shez is prioritized over Byleth. But that means that most of the cast of characters that you've come to know and love will never get to meet their beloved professor. If, on the other hand, you pick Byleth, you condemn Shez to an unmarked grave and doom many of the characters that you meet to a tragic fate. Pick to play as Byleth, and Geralt will always die. Even if you go through the trouble of saving Byleth and Geralt while playing as Shez, the relationship Byleth then forms with the students isn't the same. Every interaction feels hollow between the still a mercenary Byleth and all the people who could have been their students. It's almost insincere, just a shadow of what you know existed in another life. Phantoms line either side of the roads that you can possibly travel. This puts you in Byleth's situation when Sothis says both sides of time are revealed to you and you alone. This is the burden of being a god. You know what time holds. You know that no path you could take will lead to happy endings for everyone. Being a god in this case feels less like choosing who you will save and more like choosing who you will condemn. It's the burden of knowing too much. And yet, for a night in every route, you all danced together, as if everything was okay. God, these games, there's real humanity to them. There are truths buried in fictions, realities explored through fantasy. So when I look at Leda dance, I do see a beautiful work of art created by a passionate, thoughtful team. And I'm so eager to see the world they built, to dive into it, and to see what time holds. But something is telling me to slow down, to pause. I've seen dances in the past, and I know the omens they bring, the tragedies that they foretell. We already know enough about Leda to know there's more to the performer than what the audience sees. But look at them. They dance along, and for a moment, I just want to let them. Put all the shadows out of your mind. Can we just for one night have this dance? No thought for yesterday, no thought for tomorrow. As Edelgard put it, for just this moment lost in time. There will be a day when the night we danced is a distant memory of a sweeter time, when we were younger and naive. Ignorance is bliss, they say, and we're in a bit of a Pandora's box situation. Once opened, there will be no closing it. There's no going back to that innocent state. We still have just over a month before this game releases, so while we have this brief moment when we are aware of our ignorance but still immersed in it, I almost want to enjoy it. Let us have this bliss. Even if it lasts for a short time, it is still happening when we have a dance and none of these shadows that engulf it. This performance reminds us to cherish that which is ephemeral. Let the doors close, forget the world. Even if we have but a moment, let it be one worth remembering.